Okay, hi. Um, my name's Trix Niernberger. I've been a master naturalist since where I joined in 2019. And this program or presentation I have put together is on wood frog reproduction, 12 years of observations and that I've had in Petersburg, New York. And all the photos contained here are mine, except for one, and I'll show you which one that is. So I'm taking a deep breath. We've had a weird night, so we will see how this goes. And if we lose the internet connection, Christy has it recorded. Here's one of my favorite pictures of a wood frog in the pond, and you can clearly see his, how small he is compared to the leaves. Okay. I need to keep, sorry. I'm going to go over what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to look at the location of the observations, the vernal pools where reproduction takes place, the wood frog. We'll do an overview, and then we'll look at his life in the forest a little bit, and in the winter, and then in the spring, including mating, eggs, and tadpoles, and then a little bit more. This is the location of the observations. Some of these presentations we've made, I haven't been clear on where these are taking place. So I wanted it to be clear tonight. We're up here closer to Grafton in the what they call mountains. This is the Rensselaer Plateau, which is a 118,000 acre forested region. It's the 5th largest forest in New York State. We have 70 acres of forest with 3 vernal pools. Our town is Petersburg, and we're very close to Grafton Lake State Park. And our elevation, according to Google, is 1,535 feet. And we're real close to Pownell, Vermont, and Williamstown, Massachusetts. Vernal pools, also called seasonal woodland pools, is where frogs breed, and these pools are in deciduous and mixed forests. They breed in the early spring when snow and ice may still be present. They thrive in the higher elevations in eastern and northern United States, most of Canada and Alaska, and they're the only North American frog north of the Arctic Circle. Vernal pools are not connected to other waterways. There's no fish. The pools usually dry up in autumn, but they may not if the season has been wet, like this past year. New York State has no protections on vernal pools, and we'll go over that a little bit about some states that do. The key indicator species of vernal pools are fairy shrimp, which I've never seen them, wood frogs, which I've seen thousands, and spotted salamanders, which I've seen a few of those too. They all reproduce in spring vernal pools. The ecosystem is considered to be the vernal pool and the surrounding uplands. Our vernal pool has spring peepers, but I learned that spring peepers can reproduce in other places. So I have some vernal pools are very interesting, and although my presentation is not going to be on this vernal pools tonight, I wanted to share some resources. The Amphibian Migration and Road Crossings Project, a DEC Hudson Valley project, Christy sends out some of their information. They produced webinars this year on vernal pools, which are quite interesting, and that's their website. The New York Natural Heritage Program just put on their website a new study determining the importance of vernal pools across geophysical and urbanization gradients to inform regulation and conservation management. I think it will be the first tool for us in New York State to use to try to get some protections on vernal pools. There's still a lot of data to be collected, but then of Pools and Peoples, a website which is very helpful, is put together. Maine put it together, and they spent years in their effort to conserve vernal pools. iNaturalist also has a separate subsection, a subgroup called Empire State Vernal Pools, which I didn't even know about till very recently. Here's the threat to vernal pools, and this was Mary Beth Colasveri, who's with Siena College Environmental Studies, did the presentation for the amphibian project on January 25th, and she went over these threats. Mapping is difficult due to the small size and because they can dry out in late summer and fall. They haven't been valued historically. They fall through regulatory cracks. In New York State, there's no protection, and there's no protection federally. As we learned in another webinar, New York State protection does not extend to wetlands that are less than 12.4 acres. The states with protections for vernal pools are Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Vermont, and Pennsylvania, those being those around us. Vernal pools can be filled and drained for development. There's barriers to migration of the species like the roads, and that's what the amphibians project is doing. They get volunteers to escort frogs and salamanders across the roads to get to the vernal pools. And also another study validated that it's a very difficult wetland for humans to create. We have 3 vernal pools, and I will just take you through. This is what I'm calling Vernal Pool 1. It has, it's circular. There's no, there's also although there is a canopy, there is some opening in the canopy. It's a valley in between 2 hills. It's very far back in the deep woods. It's maybe a half acre. We have trail cameras out there that have photographed bears, coyotes, fishers, deer, foxes, raccoons, hawks, wild turkeys, and owls eating the wood frogs. One sunny afternoon, we were lucky to see a mass of tadpoles popping out at the same time at this vernal pool. The sun was right on the mass, and they were all popping out. It was really a sight. So my photos subsequently are not from this pool. They're from this pool, which is Vernal Pool 2, which is very close to our house. And what's nice about it for photographing the wood frogs and to see their activity is that you can get in here and sit. I kind of crawl in here and sit and watch the activity, and I'm able to photograph it. Here's another very precise picture of it. And you'll see later, I'll describe female frogs, how they hide. And oftentimes they'll be hiding under these little patches of grass and land. I just took that last week. This is what it looks like. It's very hard to photograph. It's over an acre. And when the trees are leafed out, it's very hard to see. Here's another picture, but I can't get the whole thing in one photo. So this second vernal pool, it's at least an acre. It's close to our house, like I said. It's what would be called a high value pool, in that hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of frogs we have every year. And they maneuver in between those inlets, the inlets of water between the small islands. On the first or second wet night, I will crawl in there, and they're in a frenzy. And this is a night photo. They often at that time hop on the land instead of the water, and they will just hop on me. Here is clear vernal pool water on the first day, if I'm lucky. It's shallow in that, very shallow in that Vernal Pool 2, and within each subsequent day, as the frogs hop under the leaves and up again, and it becomes cloudier and cloudier. Here's what this vernal pool looked like in August of 2011. So when you have a dry summer and fall, you can see there's some mud here, but it'll dry out and ferns will grow. I don't have a picture of Vernal Pool 3, although wood frogs congregate there and I have observed the action. It is right next to our residential road. One time I was sitting out there observing and a car stopped, wondering what the heck I was doing. But that road is heavily sprinkled with road salt in the winter, and that puts wood frogs and their larvae in jeopardy. Studies have found that road salt negatively affects tadpole growth and mortality. And I looked at one study that said that tadpole exposure of the salt mixture actually affected the proportion, reduced the proportion of female wood frogs. This, I'm not going to go over this slide. This is a summary of the details that I will go over following. But it's, if you want to look at it later, it's just a summary of what we're going to go over. Here's an adult wood frog in the forest. They're 1.5 to 3.5 inches. They always have this brown mask and this line here under the brown mask. The males are smaller than the females. The legs are twice the size of the body and the head. Their underside, which you can't see here, is a cream colored. And they live, according to what I've read, they live 3 to 5 years and they reproduce after 2 years. Now, can you see the wood frog in the leaf litter? I wanted to show you how their summer, what they look like in the summer does camouflage them in the leaf litter. And I'll give you a second, but here he is right here. And you can see his mask. So wood frogs in the winter. This is a curious thing about wood frogs and has been well documented in the literature. And this is the only picture that is not mine. It's by Evelyn Davidson, because I've never seen a wood frog that's frozen, but they freeze in the winter. They bury themselves under the leaf litter and the snow cover, and providing them some insulation. But then they will freeze 60 to 70% of its body. The heart stops beating, the lungs and other organs stop working, and a large portion of the water and blood freeze. Here are the observation dates of the wood frogs. I don't have 2010 because there was a camera malfunction, but you can see here that where we are at on the Rensselaer Plateau, that wood frogs come out to mate between mid-March and mid-April. They return to the vernal pools when evening temperatures are at or above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. There's rain and thawed ground, although snow and ice may still be present in parts of the vernal pool. What is somewhat interesting for me, because I've never confirmed this in literature, but when there is a intermittent freeze, like if they come out and there might be a snowstorm or the temperatures drop dramatically, the wood frogs will hide probably under the leaf litter in the pond. I'm not sure about that. And then they come back. And that's been my experience. If you look at the dates in 2016, they came back about 9 days later. In 2018, they came back about a week later, and here it was more like 5 days. Okay, I'm going to play this short video, which is not accessible through this PowerPoint. So I'm going to go briefly to another screen, but you'll see and hear an individual frog, and their sound is like a quack or a quack, along with the wood frog chorus in the background. Okay, I hope that came out pretty well. You could see when he is calling, his sides protrude, and there's no lung sac there, but the skin comes kind of blows out from the lungs. Here's the male is gray brown, and the female is usually a much lighter, this peach color, but I have seen females that don't get that light, that they are darker. It's only the males that make the call. They don't have the external pouch, just like I said. Their throat and sides of their body over the lungs distend when the sound is produced. Here's another picture of a female, quite pretty one, and a male with the distended air sacs quacking. This one of the more interesting things about wood frog mating is that what the scientists, they have explosive breeding, or that's what the scientists call it. The male frogs wrestle each other to get to claim the female, and it's quite a scene. Here's another one of them wrestling, half underwater, half above water. Here are a few more. You can see the egg sac here of the female. She's totally underwater. And here's some voyeurs. Here's the same group with, you can tell this is the egg sac of the female, again underwater. It looks like there might be down to three here, male frogs. And here we're down to 2. You can tell that this frog, this male frog, looks like he's in the lead of he's got his front legs around her, but this guy is going the wrong way, but he has pretty good position. And this is a group of wood frogs underwater, wrestling to get the female. This is a slide. It looks a little busy, but it's quite interesting. This is a wood frog behavior that I've witnessed. The males attempt to mate with about anything, including other males, but they quickly figure out that the alliance isn't right. But they also will go after other things. They're super frenzied, especially on the first couple nights. And it is reported that males arrive at the pools first, although I haven't witnessed that. Females, on the other hand, avoid pursuit. I've seen them leap, 3 or 4 feet to get away from a male frog. I've also seen them hiding quietly behind little clumps of grass or land and hiding under the water, but usually they're pursued there. In the brawls, 6 or more males may be in a fight to get hold of the female. And also, after a male and female are paired, males will continue to pursue the female. So there's these recurring struggles. There are fewer female wood frogs in the pool. I confirmed, that's always been interesting to me, but I never confirmed it that is typical. One article I read said that there were at least 20 males to 1 female. Another thing is interesting is that they will go completely silent when they hear other wildlife or a bird of prey. If just a bird of prey will fly over. I saw one owl dip down and grab a frog, and the pool of, and fly out back up. And the pool of frogs was, even though it was confined to an area, the whole pool went silent for a brief while after that. When I come out, they will hide in the water, but they won't hide long on the first couple of nights, which is usually when I try to get out there. That this is something that I haven't read about this, but this is something that I've witnessed, the sentry frog. That's my name for them. But what will happen is that I'll sit down and a sentry frog will pop up and just watch me, not say anything. He's probably going to only be about a foot, maybe 2 feet from me, and just pointed at me and watches me. And then and sometimes there are other sentry frogs that pop up, scattered about. Then when I guess what happens is when he decides, it's a male, that I'm not harmful, then he'll croak or quack, and gradually a couple more will come up and they might start quacking. And then when I guess they're all satisfied, they'll all come out in the entire pool and continue their mating process, or, quacking and catching females. Wood frogs lay their eggs communally. In other words, their eggs are laid in mass, but there may be several or many masses in one vernal pool, depending on the size and design of the pool. And certainly in our vernal pool too, there are usually a bunch of egg masses. Here's a cute couple. I just thought I'd show you them swimming. Usually the female does all the work and the male rides along. This is the position that the frogs are in once the pairs are together. A male frog will claps a female behind her forelegs and hooking his toe thumbs together around her in a hold it's called amplexus, which is continued for days or hours until the female deposits the eggs and he fertilizes them. They swim and hop around like this for quite a while. Outside on the land and in the water, they swim. Here's one swimming again. You can see how much longer. Of course, he's just riding, but she's swimming. Here's a close-up where you can see the grasp here under the forearms. Now, this is what I call the big squeeze. I couldn't find a name for it, nor could I find any articles that talked about it. But prior to the eggs being squeezed out, or they become almost flat from his grasp, I guess. And oftentimes you can't hardly even see that the male's eyes are open. Here's another picture of the flattening. I'm going to show you one couple's couplings in 13 slides. This is at the communal egg laying location. You can see all the eggs. And this is a male and female. She's originally above the water, but they are in the flattened position. And this is her, one of her egg sacs. And over here is another one. Okay, this is, you can see here that the eggs are starting to come out. Fresh eggs are the black with the white dots. And you can see how that changes as they're in the water, but they're just beginning to come out of her. And he is, from what I've read, the male fertilizes the eggs as they're being expelled by the female. I haven't been able to capture that on camera, so I really don't know what exactly that looks like. Here is a pretty good picture of one of her egg sacs, and you can see the stretch marks. Probably I don't know, I assume it's similar to women. And here are the eggs are still coming out. Here's a good picture of the egg sac emptying, where you have a pretty good amount of eggs you can see very readily, and the egg sac over here is emptying, and you can tell they're underwater. Here it's the same, they're still underwater and increasing the eggs. Here you can see how his legs are paired, so I can't figure out how he's fertilizing the eggs, but maybe that's what they say. So here you can see that either this egg sac is deflated or almost that way, and they're still underwater. Here the male is surfacing, so, and you can see very little of the egg sac here. Here he is preparing to jump off the female. Yeah, I think he's like getting his legs out. She's rather withered there. And he just jumped off. This is his leg. I didn't get anything but his leg. And she is laying there rather shriveled. I thought this was kind of funny. The female is underwater, still recovering, and this male wood frog just hops over, ignoring her. That's not the frog that was on her. Now the female begins to surface. Her head is above the water, and she's moving her leg. And this whole thing is just a couple minutes long. And now she has leaped several feet away. I didn't get the actual leap, but she leaped several feet away, and she's resting. And you can tell how much smaller she looks. And then she scoots. She moves to kind of I assume she in seclusion under this stick. And that's the end of my slides on this particular couple. I'll show you some slides of some other couples in the egg masses. This couple, sometimes they will just swim over the egg mass. And I wonder if it's just that they're clearly not in the position where they're flattened, so they're not going to stop there. But I have seen the male try to get the female there and the female swim away, and that could be what's happening here. This is a couple which is kind of interesting. He's lost an eye, but yet he was vigorous enough to get a female. Here's some group sex. We are in the egg pool. Here's one couple here. You can really see both of her egg sacs. They're probably she's probably just about to expel the eggs. And here's another couple over here. This is an interesting photo. There must have been 3 frog couples in the beginning, because here is the eggs of the first couple that must have gone on. And this is the second couple and their eggs, and the third couple and their eggs, and then, oh, well, her eggs, and the other male frog is fertilizing him. This is a stick, and I'll show you a good picture of that later. They tend to lay their eggs in sticks, and according to the literature, the female can lay up to 500 to 2,000 eggs, and they do that in the communal areas. The gel around the eggs swells, and that's how you, and they kind of all swell together. The eggs may hatch in 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the water temperature. For I've witnessed, I think it's more like 4 where we are, or longer. And then the froglets form in 2 to 4 months. Here are those eggs on that stick with the frogs removed. I waited, and they, so that gives you an idea of how they stabilize their eggs on sticks. Here is another egg mass with very prominent sticks that they've, and that's why they've chosen to put their eggs there, so that they aren't roaming all over. Here's an egg mass that we can't see any sticks there, and they do lay them without the sticks, and I don't know if there's anything that's holding them there other than the weight of the eggs. Here's another thing that I haven't read about, but I've witnessed it, that there are frogs that actually guard the eggs during the first couple of days while the eggs are piling up, and I call them guard frogs, but they'll just sit there and kind of watch, and I don't know if they're ensuring the safety of the eggs or what, but there can be several to one egg mass. Here's another pretty egg mass. Here are some eggs about 16 days old. I was lucky to get this picture. As I said, the water gets darker and darker, and you can tell this, but these are still, and you can see a little bit, you can see how the tadpoles are forming in the eggs. It's rare that I can find that. So what's next? The larvae undergo 2 stages of development. During the first stage, the larvae develop rapidly, especially if the water is warm. The growth depends on the water temperature, but the tadpoles have a high mortality rate. And as I said, this is supposed to take 2 to 4 weeks. Tadpoles to juvenile frogs is the next metamorphosis, and that features, again, rapid development and growth, and that depends on food availability, temperature of the water, and population density. Tadpoles will eat the egg jelly around the eggs. They'll eat the algae that form on the eggs and in the water. And they'll eat decaying plants, dead animal matter, and they will eat weaker tadpoles. Here's a picture of tadpoles, and the water was fairly clear. Here's a more of a close-up of tadpoles in the water. And here's a picture I got of a froglet. And this was taken on July 30th. And the egg laying that year was April 9th, 10th, 11th. I would say he's pretty well finished forming. I mean, as much as I know, and he'll probably leave soon. And as I showed you that one year in 2011 and August, there really wasn't any water left. So the rest of the story. Following the metamorphoses, less than 20% of juveniles will permanently leave the vicinity of their natal pools. The remaining juveniles will leave the pool, but not go that far. A main study found that the wood frogs traveled as far as 3,000 feet from the vernal pool in the summer, that the wood frogs spent time on the glacier boulders under moss in summer, and that the wood frogs also returned to the same hibernation sites. One study found that the sex ratio of wood frogs wintering close by would skew towards males, and that may be the reason why they think males appeared at the pools first. Another, I read that some think that they get there so they can start calling, and the females will come. The majority of offspring return to the natal pool to breed. According to the literature, most frogs breed only once in their lives, although some will breed 2 or 3 times, generally with differences according to age. And mating occurs after 2 years of age, which I stated in the average life is 3 to 5 years. But I know that wood frogs can live longer than that. Wood frogs are food for some, they're part of the food chain, and some conifers in the forest will eat them, like coyotes, raptors, and snakes. Here's my favorite resource about amphibians and reptiles. If you are interested and don't have this, I would recommend it. I put some notes. I used Google Scholar and looked at a lot of journal articles, and here are a few that if you want to go back and look at where I got some of my confirming information, or some of the facts that I've relayed, or at least the current facts. And this is a female wood frog leaping from a male, which I was lucky enough to get, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. And I'll stop sharing. Is that? I can't hear you.
Thank you. That's because I didn't unmute myself.
That was really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Your photos are wonderful.
Amazing. Amazing.
Let's see, we have some questions. Let's see. Adrienne remarked that she has had a barred owl come swooping down during amphibian crossing nights and take frogs and salamanders before she can cross them to the other side of the road. So that's a comment. Kathy says, Trix, have you thought about testing the water in Vernal Pool 3 for saline? Isaac Walton League is providing test strips for this purpose. I've been doing it this winter in Western New York. Might be a start to documenting the effect of saline on frog reproduction.
Yes, I have, and I haven't documented that pool 3, but that's a good idea. I did sign up, but you need a smartphone, and I don't have one, and so I'm not. I wanted to test our road, but so I'm not doing that right now. But it's a very good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Do you know how much both male and males and females weigh?
No, I don't. I don't. And the female obviously would weigh a lot more when she's got her eggs. But I could look that up if that's important to you. But I don't remember seeing it. But it would not be in pounds. It would be. I can look that up for you.
Okay. Matthew and Linda ask, what is your technique for getting these great and intimate photos?
I think that the best answer is patience. I mean, I will sit. This probably sounds strange, but this is the highlight of my year. I cancel everything once they come out and I go out there and sit. Now, once I get when I'm satisfied with the amount of photos I get, I leave them alone so that they have plenty of time for their own interactions. But this pool, if I didn't mention it, is just the one I use is just practically right outside our door. It's just a couple of minutes away.
Okay. Have you seen any years, Paul asks, when the pool dries up before the tadpoles have finished metamorphosing into frogs?
I haven't documented that. Part of the problem with when it begins to dry is that you can't see anything. You know, it becomes muddy and you hope that the tadpoles are doing all right, but I don't really want to dig and disturb them. But I always worry.
Yeah. Paul, there's an article that I've read or maybe information in a book about frogs or a lot of creatures that live in vernal pools. And if the pool starts growing or starts drying up, then oftentimes it triggers, I think, whatever hormonal process tells them to go through that transformation, and they'll wind up just coming out of the pools as smaller individuals. But then that makes them much more susceptible to desiccation and predation, and so they have a lower chance of survival when that happens. Let's see, Lori asked, did you see multiple species mating in the same pool at the same time as wood frogs?
No, the wood frogs come out. Well, I shouldn't say that. Wood frogs are the earliest, but we also get spring peepers. And if the wood frogs do come out later in April, the spring peepers might be out there, but it doesn't interfere with anything. The wood frogs are so plentiful. They're definitely dominant. And so I know I've seen salamanders in the pool, and of course they're deeper and they also stay in the pool longer, I guess, but I haven't documented them.
Okay, let's see, Kathy is offering that if you send her photos and coordinates, she will submit them for you gladly.
Oh, of the salinity? Is that what you mean?
So. I believe so. Yep. Let's see. Awesome pictures. All right. By the time mating begins, are there still more males than females? Selma
Oh
asks.
yes. Oh yes. That's what I was talking about. There's lots more males than females. And I at first, for years, I just wondered if it was our pool or something, but according to what I read, that must be very common.
Okay. Joshua asks, do you know why the males typically don't venture as far away from the vernal pools after the mating season?
No, I just know that they documented it. Maine, the state of Maine, they actually put little, what do you call it? Radar or whatever it is. They put something on the frogs where they track them. And I guess they must have made distinctions between males and females, and that's what they found.
Okay. Steve Kinney asked, do the wood frogs overwinter frozen in the mud, in the vernal pools, or in the woods, only to return to the pools for breeding?
From my, they go back into the forest, and that's where they freeze, and they just return to the vernal pools for mating.
Okay. Kathy says yes, about salinity. She would submit that data. Deb Nero asks, is it known how sex is determined in wood frogs?
I don't know the answer to that. Is that what you mean? What do you mean?
Deb, yeah, Deb, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, well, because in some, reptiles and amphibians, it's temperature driven, the temperature at which the eggs are when they are developing. There's other factors, there's sometimes environmental factors that affect whether the sex is skewed towards male or female. And I'm wondering if it's temperature or something in wood frogs, and that may be why there's so many more males than females. It doesn't seem as though the females should be predated more heavily than the males, so it seems like the skewed sex ratio of 20 to 1, if that's the number that was published, 20 males to 1 female, seems like it must be something driven by development or sex determination in the species or something.
I do not know, and I haven't read about it either, but that's an interesting question. One article that I read that about the ratios was 100 years old. It was like the article was written just notes.
Right. So that makes it sound like it is something that's long term. I mean, it's been that way for a long time, and that's why it may be that colder temperatures drive them towards males, or whatever. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if wood frogs in the southern end of their range have the same sex distribution that they seem to, wherever the study was done 100 years ago and that you seem to see, I don't know, just what data is out there, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know, but that's an interesting question. Who knows? Maybe I'll update this and try to find that out. I don't know. Thank you.
That is a good question. I've never heard of that in frogs, but I mean, temperature dependent sex determination, but it is curious.
I don't know. Yeah, how do frogs normally, how do other species of frogs, Kirsty, determine sex?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, the turtles, the whole sea turtle thing, what was the species of turtles that they, which turtle were they digging up the eggs and rearing them in incubators and releasing them, only to find out that unbeknownst for 20 years, they'd been rearing them at the temperature that created males, not females,
Yeah, so they had only one sex.
Yeah, so they were releasing one sex. It's like, so I mean, how do frogs do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Paul Siskin says, I just found an article that says that temperature determines the ratio. Huh. Interesting. All right. I'm going to have to check that out.
I just found an abstract that says male sex ratio is 100% at 32 degrees centigrade, whereas at 20 degrees centigrade, it's 50-50 male to female.
50-50.
So to translate that, there's more males at higher temperature.
Yeah, that's what the abstract says. Yeah.
To summarize that, okay.
Very interesting.
Well, this is a cold frog. I mean, it likes being in the cold, clear up to the Arctic Circle. So I don't know what that means, but
yeah. In the class I teach this semester, we talk about winter adaptations in all kinds of organisms, and we use the wood frog as our poster child because it's so interesting the way they can freeze solid. And if you go on YouTube, you can find videos of people like dropping a wood frog into a glass, and it actually clinks like an ice cube. And there's a paper that talks about, they actually documented the thawing of a wood frog. And an individual wood frog, it only takes 24 hours to go from completely frozen solid and nothing functioning to up and moving again, which I find incredible.
Wow.
So do they know how they must have some sort of antifreeze? I mean, otherwise they must stop ice crystals from forming internally. Otherwise it would explode their cells and things like that, you know, when they freeze.
They
So-
do. They have antifreeze inside their cells, and then they think they dehydrate the cells some, and they push water, and they direct freezing to the intercellular spaces. So they're
Okay.
freezing within their bodies, but not within their cells.
not
So
within
their
the cells, yeah.
aren't bursting.
And taking water out of the cells increases the sugar level, which also is a antifreeze sort of thing, I think.
There's lots and lots of articles about that aspect of wood frogs because it's so unusual, I guess.
Well, Trix, that was a great presentation, and
Well-
I wish you a very happy March and April. Your best time of the year. That seems like it would be very therapeutic to sit out there with the wood frogs
It is.
in the
Yeah.
springtime. Good way to wake up to spring yourself. Let's see. Yep, all kinds of great comments, which I will share with you
Okay.
when we're done. And I appreciate everybody coming. We had a great group tonight. Wow, we had at one point 39 people. So that was great. And it's great to see everyone. And I'll see you all the second Monday of March. We will have two, the second and the fourth Monday.